And we'll move to the approval of minutes for the ACHRA board meeting of October 24th, 2023.
So moved.
Have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
I've got a motion by trustee Jepson and second by trustee Look. Do we have any changes, additions, subtractions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, it passes unanimously. I have no chair's remarks this morning. We'll move to item number 5. For informational purposes, consider a presentation from Mary Bujold. Bujold, thank you. President of Maxfield Research for an overview of Anoka County Housing Needs Analysis Report. Karen.
Mr. Chair, trustees, about every decade, we have created, in partnership with Maxfield Research, a comprehensive housing analysis that helps us identify emerging trends, what has happened over the last decade, helps us understand the housing market. The last time we did this, we broke the county into kind of sub-regions and did a specific report that tied more closely to those areas. So we perhaps had the Northeast communities kind of clumped together and the Southern communities because they're very different. We now have our study. Mary is here from Maxfield to walk us through some of the highlights. But I can't say enough how important this study is to the cities of Anoka County. They use this all the time. And to developers, as somebody's looking at placing either housing developments or even businesses in Anoka County, they want data. And now we'll have some fresh data. It'll be available on our website. I will be having a meeting with the cities to go over this information. And then each city will have access to the key information, not only for their county, but for the county as a whole. With that, I'm happy to turn it over to Mary Bujold, President of Maxfield Research.
Thank you, Karen. Mr. Chair and IHRA board members, thank you for having me here to present a summary. I understand that I only have 15 minutes and there's a lot of information, so I'm just going to try and keep it brief and hit the highlights. So I just wanted to mention that the final report is still in process. A draft report has been issued and we are making some final adjustments to that, as well as very specific recommendations for each of the communities that are in Anoka County. That was a change from the previous study. So each city will have its own specific demand analysis and its own specific recommendations for the study. So as you can see here, there were 21 geographies, 20 cities, and 1 township. And I just wanted to mention that when we do demand, because their demand is, demand in the metro area is somewhat fluid. So demand is somewhat fluid among adjacent counties as well, and for specific product types. So I think you can see here the trajectory of Anoka County's population from 1950 to 2040. I think it's no surprise that since 2000, growth has been steady. We are seeing at a somewhat decelerating pace, largely due to demographic changes, which is consistent with most other suburban core counties. We are expected, though, Anoka County is expected to see kind of a leap up again in population from 2030 to 2040. And that is shown here on this slide. So there were a number of communities that exceeded their 2020 population projection once the census figures were in. I think Blaine was, of course, the highest, followed by Columbia Heights and Spring Lake Park, and then several other communities. I would just want to say that for a lot of those more fully developed communities, it was largely because they engaged in some significant redevelopment with regards to housing, which has not only boosted their population, but their housing units as well, and all of that has been quite successful. So this just shows a little bit about what we're expecting to happen, and this is in the metro area as well as Anoka County. We are seeing these trends are very similar to a lot of other communities and a lot of other counties in the metro area, with significant growth among our oldest populations. And then also that kind of mid-age 35 to 44, again, because of demographics, also growth in that area. I think it's going to be definitely challenging as we move forward to determine how we are going to accommodate the housing needs of older adults. And despite the fact that we've been building senior housing, I would say that we're really going to have to look towards a diversity of housing product types in order to really meet the needs of this increasing group. So median household incomes. So the median household income in Anoka County, $90,000 in 2023. It's projected to rise to about $106,000 by 2030. That actually, we believe that may actually go a little higher due to wage growth and also a continued very tight job market. In comparison, it's a little bit higher than the Twin Cities, 7-county metro area at this time. So I think one interesting point here is median household incomes in Anoka County are equal to or higher than the metro area for households in that younger age group. And we have consistently started to see this over time, over the past, I would say, 10 to 15 years. Whereas this younger group, because of certain types of jobs that are available to them and the wage levels at those jobs, they're tending to have higher median household incomes at a younger age. And this trend is actually supporting new market rate rental housing and also the purchase of entry-level and move-up housing among this generation. So we have quite a diversity in terms of owners and renters in the county, and the more fully developed communities, of course, have higher rental proportions. I want to also say, too, that it's going to, I think, be a little bit of a challenge right now and as we move forward as to how we get more people into that owner-occupied proportion group. It's been a challenge for the entire decade. And so I think there's a lot of things, and we're going to be addressing some of those items in the recommendations. Of course, there has been a preference for rental housing. I think some of that, of course, has been because younger households have been delayed in actually trying to get into the for-sale market. We are seeing increases in people living alone. Married couples with children continue to decrease. Roommate households have increased modestly, and this is a category that we expect to continue to increase over time, largely because of cohabitating couples and other types of couple households that are in that roommate household group, so that the definition of that has really started to change. So mobility rates, we have seen mobility rates continue to increase. Of course, they're highest among younger households. We are starting to see some increase, again, in that older 75 plus. Largely that ends up being due to relocation to senior housing and other healthcare facilities. Some of it is relocation outside the state. Housing cost burdens. So 42% of all renters are cost burdened, meaning they pay 30% or more of their income towards housing. That compares to 45% of the metro area. And then, of course, it's much higher for households with incomes under $35,000. And then 18% of all owners are cost burdened. That's equal to the metro area. And then 58% of owners with incomes less than $50,000 are cost burdened. And the median gross rent is very similar in Anoka County to the Twin Cities metro area. I think you'll see this as we move on, but that median gross rent has really increased in Anoka County as new housing has been added. New rental housing has been added. The employment growth has been, of course, impacted by recession and pandemic, but of course we are seeing good recovery in employment since the pandemic. I don't think that's really, it's still recovering. So I think what's important in terms of jobs by industry sector, so Anoka County has a very strong manufacturing sector, which is not the same as many other counties in the Twin Cities metro area. It accounts for 18% of employment versus 10% only in the metro area. Education and health services is 23.4% of employment compared to 24.5% for the metro area, not significant. Not a significant difference. Construction employment is also higher in Anoka County. Again, manufacturing and construction tend to pay higher wages than some of the other industry sectors. And I think this is important for Anoka County in terms of its employment base, important for some future opportunities, and to consider moving forward. Average weekly wages for manufacturing and construction are slightly lower, but they have less of a gap as compared to the metro area. Wages for financial activities and business and financial services sector have a more significant gap. So these are just some of the job vacancies by industry sector. Of course, I think it's no surprise that we have a significant amount of job vacancies overall in the Twin Cities metro area. This data was not available for individual counties, although we are trying to see if we can get it for Anoka County only through a special run with the Department of Employment and Economic Development. So I know that Anoka and Washington counties have partnered together for the Minnesota Technology Corridor. And I think really the most important thing here is we have been doing some work for the private development community, for communities along that corridor, looking at trying to increase the housing stock in that area. And there's been some challenges with that, although we are seeing new projects in some communities moving forward, and we expect that there is going to be continued interest in those communities along that corridor to provide new housing both for sale and rental. So just briefly, as you can see, Anoka County continues to have more people go outside the county than come into the county for jobs, although 43% of Anoka County workers are also employed in Anoka County. So market overview. So multifamily development over this past decade has really rivaled for sale development. So we've seen almost equal numbers in some cases to multifamily units being placed into the county in terms of, and that can include both owned housing as well as rental housing. So I think one thing that's important to note is we've seen some very strong development of like townhomes and detached villa dwellings, but I would say townhomes, and that product was really lacking in a lot of other areas of the county. And so that type of product in Anoka County has been very strong and has been different than other communities. Most of the county's housing is newer, developed 1970s or later, and of course, as the county adds more housing, that proportional shift to newer housing is going to continue. So it's existing owned housing is generally affordable, but where we are seeing the significant gap, of course, is that we're not seeing enough movement in that existing housing stock because people are tending to stay in that stock longer. And so new housing is so much more expensive than that existing housing. So really a lot of what is going to need to be addressed moving forward in this next decade and beyond is how can we reduce that gap? How can we really create housing products that are going to meet that middle market and even that entry-level market? It is a significant challenge, and Anoka County is not the only one facing it. We're facing it across the nation. And I think that we definitely really we're gonna really have to dig deep and get creative to be able to solve our current housing gaps in terms of affordability. It's no surprise that rental rates have really increased substantially. While this supports development of new housing, it also creates some difficulty again in that affordable component. So as you can see, 42% of renters are paying between $1,000 and $1,500 a month. Resale prices. Resale prices for both existing and new construction have not gone down, and they continue to increase. So they rose since 2018. The median resale price has risen almost 42% for single-family homes and 49% for owned multifamily. Part of the reason for the higher proportional increase in that multifamily is because during the recession, multifamily pricing hit rock bottom. And so when that sector started to recover, that pricing started to increase at a more rapid rate, which is really why we're seeing that higher percentage increase. And single households and couples without children tend to be more attracted to that product, and they're also more attracted in times of when this affordability issue is the most significant. Most active listings are in the mid-price range, which is good, but we just have very, very low inventory. Our inventory has been low for almost the entire decade coming out of the recession. Despite high mortgage rates, prices continue to rise, again, testifying to the significant demand. Lot inventories declined with the rise in construction starts, and so as you can see, we've had a significant decrease in lot inventories, although I will say here in looking at the lot supplies, I think we do have sufficient lot supply to maintain sufficient inventory in this near term to meet demand, although new construction is definitely lagging at this point. And so as we start to see those mortgage interest rates come down, then communities are gonna have to be prepared again for that resurgence in housing development. There is a mix of vacancy rates throughout the county, but I will say this is actually the most recent information, and despite the fact that Coon Rapids and Fridley are tending to experience a little bit higher vacancy rates at this time, most of that is really related to new product that has just recently been delivered to the market. The overall rental stock among all of the communities still has very low vacancy rates. So we surveyed about 14,600, a little over 14,600 units across Anoka County. We identified an overall vacancy rate of 2.3%. 5% is market equilibrium, so you can see that there's pent-up demand. Almost 12,000 units of market rate housing. Again, very low vacancy rates. Shallow subsidy, which is that usually low-income housing tax credit properties. 2,433 units, a very low vacancy rate, 0.3%, and subsidized 0.6%. Most of the housing stock was, rental housing stock was built in the 70s and 80s, but also there's been significant new construction, as you can see. Lifestyle renters are driving rental growth, and this is expected to continue, although I think we do have to consider that we do still have a very significant demand for affordable rental housing. So apartment development trends, we are still seeing private developers despite the fact that we have higher mortgage interest rates. Multifamily housing development is still their focus. And we have a lot of developers that are looking to continue to develop multifamily housing despite the fact that we have some significant challenges in that regard. More about, a little bit about senior housing. This is the senior housing continuum. So senior affordable and subsidized units comprise the largest number of units in Anoka County, but we do also have quite a bit of assisted living, active adult rental, and the other components too. I would say that during this next decade, I think we're going to see a lot more interest in developing adult for sale product, as well as more active adult and independent living. And we may even see, and as well as that kind of for sale component. I think largely the senior housing industry has been really focused on rentals. And even though rentals tend to be generally the preferred as the older the person gets, I would say that I think we're seeing a little bit of pushback in that kind of traditional elevator style building, especially for more independent seniors. And assisted living and memory care are still kind of coming out of the pandemic, and the caregiver labor force is a significant issue. Oops. I don't need to do that. Okay, so looking at a little bit of the for sale recommendations, these are still being adjusted a little bit, but there's demand for about an estimated 8,000 owned homes, single-family, detached, and villa-style and townhomes. That's to 2030. Um, We're actually going to be doing recommendations for demand to 2040. 250 to 500 is the highest demand, but again, how are we really going to be able to serve that entry-level market? Some of it through move-up, but I think there's just such a significant demand in that first-time home buyer market. Rental housing demand for more than 6,000 units, kind of split out between market rate, affordable, and subsidized. And again, how to develop affordable housing to meet the needs of households at less than 30% of AMI. Demand for senior housing will continue to increase. AL and MC is still recovering from the pandemic, and labor shortages will continue to plague these segments in the near term. This just shows how the median home price has increased. Again, we had historic low mortgage interest rates. Those have accelerated and are coming down, which is good, but we don't know exactly how quickly those are going to continue to come down. Again, why is the entry level and middle market missing? I think that there's a lot of things that we can consider and look at on a community-based level as to how we encourage the development of different housing product types in each individual community. So some key takeaways: population and household growth was very strong last decade. There's been some increase in family households, but not enough to overshadow those without children and singles living alone. Blaine experienced the highest growth, but redevelopment in cities such as Columbia Heights, Fridley, and Coon Rapids supported new households and added new housing. Growth in that 65-plus cohort will dominate the next 15 to 20 years, but what housing products are needed? Renter households increased against owner households. The trend is expected to continue unless more affordable housing options can be provided. Anoka County is a net exporter of workers, but there could definitely be a shift through that tech corridor, and combining, I think, the idea with employment increases as connected to housing, and what types of housing will workers be needing with those new companies that are going to be coming into that area. Anoka County's strong manufacturing sector does boost wages. There are low rental vacancy rates. There has been new rental construction. There continues to be pent-up demand, and we do have projects in the pipeline. Senior housing market is on pause for some products. New product is under construction, but the focus is generally on active adult and independent living. For sale market has rising prices. There continues to be a lack of supply, even though there's a sufficient lot supply in most communities. Again, affordable product is important. Housing production, again, I think we'll need innovation, creativity, and not business as usual. We don't need to. So that's it.
Well, thank you, Mary, for all the information. It was quite a bit. Are we going to have a full copy for the entire board? If they
Yes,
would like? Okay.
absolutely.
That would be great.
Absolutely.
I did want to ask you one quick question.
Yes, of course.
Regarding the pandemic, when people were working from home. So when we're still counting people that are going to work, it's the company that they're going to work for to say that we're losing more people. We could actually have more people staying at home, working within Anoka County, but we don't have any information on how that would fall into that category, right?
Well, no, we do have. So as we've started to get the more updated figures for commuting, so we've started to see shifts in that.
Okay.
So have them counting more people that are working from home and commuting less to the office. Mm-hmm. We anticipate that that next update of 2021 data will even show a more significant difference. Okay. The other thing about it is in a lot of the general surveys, we have they've identified that a lot of people are working from home about 3 days a week, and now going into the office somewhere between 2 and 3 days a week.
Okay.
So we're starting to see that a little bit more of a shift back, but not quite as much, and more trying to benchmark or have, so office space is condensing, have people share desks and share offices and trying to accommodate that.
Trustee Look.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for this report. It's very interesting. When we talk about markets, we're talking about, somewhere on the spectrum between free market and regulated market.
Correct.
And when traveling in other states, down south or whatever, you look at the price of houses and they're significantly less. And then you come back to Minnesota and you recognize that there's a lot of regulation as it relates to permitting and cost of permits. There's MUSA lines, there's these self-imposed, you might say, misery that restricts development, you might say. And then your simple laws of supply and demand kick into effect, right? If there's not enough supply and the demand is higher, your price goes through the roof, which is somewhat what we're seeing, right? I mean, there's not enough product necessarily out there that's affordable. What would your 30,000-foot assessment of that be as it relates to regulation in Minnesota?
So many years ago, when Metropolitan Council was established, it was acknowledged as one of the unique and innovative regional development councils in the nation. And we did it for a very good reason. And I think we've been good at trying to support. We've had very good infrastructure development in the metro area. But I will say, too, that as we've kind of, and the state, too, has also been, I think, at play here, too. I think we've tended to kind of hover over some of that. And at some point, I think we've tried to protect people almost too much. And as I travel around, I too have noticed that too, that there is a lot less regulation that exists, and specifically in terms of housing. I think a lot of times when something happens, if we have some kind of catastrophe or disaster, we're kind of quick to, oh, let's regulate this. Let's now make everybody, put this in or put that in. And I saw that firsthand actually when I was working in Fargo-Moorhead, and the regulation for sprinklered townhomes and how that devastated their townhome market for a time.
Sure.
And I think that we really need, especially with the significant affordability gaps that we have, we really need to look closely at that. We have to understand, what are the real consequences of putting in regulations. We want to be proactive, but we don't want to, I think, do it to the exclusion that we're not being able to house people effectively.
Trustee Jepson.
Thank you so much for your report. All of this is fascinating to me, and I have so many questions, which I won't take the time today. But I will follow up with you, Karen, if you are okay with that. The one thing that I wanted to comment on is this information is wonderful data for the county to understand and know at the big picture, but at the city level, we have to get our city partners involved in this, because at the end of the day, they are the ones that are controlling the permitting, the zoning, the ordinances, and all of that kind of stuff. And so I really look forward to bringing this information to the cities, and hopefully my colleagues will bring it to their cities to truly understand the severity of where we are at, as the data proves, in the housing situation, and how we can actively support them in making that turnaround. So thank you.
Trustee Meisner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And yes, thank you for all this information. I do have a question for you, Karen. I will also ask you that after this meeting. But then you had mentioned, I think, that you were waiting or trying to get to tease out specific information about Anoka County from DEED. And if that is if that's true, so that was the question that I had, but I mean, like Tim O'Neill from Deed and others, I mean, this is what they do all day long, is they tease out specific information, and they would happily do that. But I wasn't sure if I misunderstood what you were saying, or.
No, we will be
You're just-
getting that.
oh,
Yeah,
okay.
We will be getting that.
Okay, got it. Very good. Thank you.
Sorry if there was a misunderstanding.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mary, for
Thank you.
the report.
Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Then we'll move on to item number 6, which is a public hearing. It's to obtain comments on the proposed use of the following reallocated program year 2023 CDBG Single Family Home Rehab Program funds.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, trustees. We have a public hearing here this morning. I'm going to kick it back over to David to go through that.
All right, thanks. I will open the public hearing portion of the meeting. The time is 11:15 a.m. I would ask that the minutes reflect that the notice of this public hearing was published on October 6, 2023 in the Anoka County Union Herald to inform the public that a hearing would occur during the November 14th HRA board meeting to provide the public with an opportunity to comment on the proposed use of reallocated funds from the Anoka County CDBG program as set forth in the notice. Before we receive public comments, Renee Sandy, the Community Development Manager, will address the board with an overview of the proposed amendments.
Again, good morning. There's 2 amendments that we're having in our program here. The first would be to allocate $123,200 of community development block grant funds to the city of Spring Lake Park for a public park updates and improvements at Able Park, located on Able Street in Spring Lake Park. The second activity being proposed is allocating $117,000 in community development block grant funds to the city of Bethel for public park improvements updates to the city's one park located on Dewey Street in the city of Bethel.
All right, so we will now begin the public comment portion of the hearing. Before we start that, did we receive any comments prior to the meeting?
No.
All right, so if there are any members of the public who wish to provide comments, now is your opportunity. Please take turns stepping up to the podium and state your name and the agency or program that you represent before addressing the Board of Trustees. Are there any members of the public who would like to address the board? Any members of the public who would like to address the board? Last call, any members? Hearing no comments, I will close the public hearing portion of the meeting and turn the meeting back to the board chairman.
Thank you. So we got 2 items. The first one is allocating $123,200 to Community Development Block Grant funds to the city of Spring Lake Park. Do I have a motion on that one?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, roll call vote.
Trustee Reinert.
Aye.
Trustee Schulte.
Aye.
Trustee Look.
Aye.
Trustee Gamache.
Aye.
Trustee Jepson.
Aye.
Trustee Meisner.
Aye.
Trustee Breasted.
Aye.
That passes unanimously. Item number 2 is allocating $117,000 in Community Development Block Grant funds to the city of Bethel for the public park updates and improvements. Do I have a motion on that one?
So moved.
It's been moved by Trustee Brasted. Do I have a second?
Second.
Trustee Schulte seconded it. Any discussion? Trustee Look.
Mr. Chair, thank you. It says City of East Bethel, but that was a mistake on that, so it is, for the record, the City of Bethel. Very good.
Any other comments, questions? Seeing none, roll call vote.
Trustee Schulte.
Aye.
Trustee Look.
Aye.
Trustee Gamache.
Aye.
Trustee Jepson.
Aye.
Trustee Meisner.
Aye.
Trustee Breasted.
Aye.
Trustee Reinert.
Aye. And that passes unanimously as well. Thank you, Renee. Item number 7 is to consider recommending the renewal of insurance premiums for ACHRA senior housing facilities in the amount of $129,478 for coverage from September 1st of 2023 through September 1st of 2024. Karen.
Mr. Chair, trustees, this is our insurance provider for our senior housing buildings. We have passed out a revised memo. The totals were correct, but Risk did make some little tweaks to the document, like adding the years, important things like that. This will provide coverage for our properties that goes back to September 1st The league is not very quick at getting these documents out, but we've been insured throughout the process. And it will take us through September of '24, through September 1st of '24. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them or ask Risk to answer them.
Thank you. It's been moved by trustee Schulte. Do I have a second? Second. It's been trustee Jepson seconded. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, roll call vote.
Trustee Look.
Aye.
Trustee Gamache.
Aye.
Trustee Jepson.
Aye.
Trustee Meisner.
Aye.
Trustee Breasted.
Aye.
Trustee Reinert. Trustee Schulte.
Aye.
And it passes unanimously. Item number 8 is to consider approval of contract C 0006566, a lease agreement between the city of Anoka and political subdivision of the state of Minnesota, a political subdivision of the state of Minnesota, by and through its Anoka County Housing and Redevelopment Authority, public body, corporate, and politic. And the Salvation Army, a Minnesota nonprofit corporation. This is with a 5-year term of January 1st, 2024 to December 31st, 2029 at a standard rate of $10.11 per square foot with a 50-cent increase in rental every 2 years per the building plan. And Corey's here. Welcome, Corey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and trustees of the HRA. So this is just a renewal. Salvation Army has currently been renting space from us out at the Blaine Service Center for a number of years. They would like to stay. They would like to renew. And so this just kind of puts that into play, and it's in play with the way we've been doing renewals for many years. And so that's really all it is, very simple.
Right. It's been moved by trustee Look.
Second.
And seconded by trustee Brasted. Any questions? Hearing and seeing none, we'll have another roll call vote.
Trustee Gamache.
Aye.
Trustee Jepson.
Aye.
Trustee Meisner.
Aye.
Trustee Breasted.
Aye.
Trustee Reinert.
Aye.
Trustee Schulte.
Aye.
Trustee Look.
Aye.
And it passes unanimously. Item number 9 is for informational purposes. The county will enter into a month-to-month lease with Dental Specialties. Do we have any information on that you'd like to share?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair, trustees. So what happened is Dental Specialties represents health partners or our well-at-work clinic for our dental program that is housed there, and it's 1 day a week. Smile Orthodontics had been the other tenant there. Smile has moved out and vacated the space. So we are currently working with health partners and with Dental Specialties to relocate our well-at-work clinic. We're hoping our well-at-work dental clinic, we're hoping down somewhere near our well-at-work clinic to kind of put them all together, maybe open up opportunities to be open more than 1 day a week. But in the meantime, it's going to take a number of months for that to happen. We'd like to continue the program and basically let them continue to stay there operating that 1 day a week in that space until we can get this moved, and then we will want to rent that space out, as is what we'd like to do. So that's really what this is about.
All right, questions? Trustee Look.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'm fully supportive of this. I think having everything centrally located in proximity to each other is better than one across the way and one somewhere else, and people aren't really sure, and so they don't use it. Obviously, we want to encourage people to use this. Dental is different. Obviously, people have relationships with their dentists, and it can get complicated, but to the extent that people would consider using this, I know it's going to be better for our rates and everything else, so along that continued plan of controlling costs. So I'll move it.
Do we need a motion on this?
Oh, it's just for
informational.
information.
But thank you.
But when it comes, maybe.
Okay, next. Sounds good. All right, and then finally was for informational purposes, the position we filled earlier today in the board meeting for the Assistant Executive Director. Do you have any final comments on that? Okay.
No, thank you.
Okay. Trustee Meisner.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. No, I was going to say, I'm sure December 8th can't come soon enough for you.
December 18th.
Oh,
can't
18th,
come soon
excuse me. Thank you.
All right, if there's nothing else, we'll adjourn the board. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.